The transport ship Endeavour shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its hull groaning under the stress of deceleration. Captain Sarah Chun gripped the armrests of her command chair, watching the view screen fill with an alien megastructure that defied human comprehension. The Zephyrian Empire's diplomatic station stretched across space like a metallic flower, its petals gleaming with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in hypnotic rhythms. "Scanning complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "The structure is massive, approximately 400 kilometers in diameter. Energy readings are off the charts." Sarah nodded, her expression grim. 3 months had passed since first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, and humanity was still reeling from the revelation that they were not alone in the universe. The aliens had been surprisingly diplomatic, extending an invitation for formal negotiations. What they hadn't expected was the demand that Earth send their youngest adult representative. In the passenger bay, 18-year-old Marcus Reed sat cross-legged on his bunk, reading a worn paperback novel. At barely legal age by human standards, he was Earth's reluctant choice for this historic mission. The Zephyrians had been specific in their request, and the United Earth government had little choice but to comply if they wanted to avoid potential conflict with a clearly superior civilization. Marcus looked up as the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All passengers, prepare for docking procedures. We'll be aboard the Zephyrian station in 20 minutes." He closed his book and took a deep breath. Marcus had been chosen not for any particular diplomatic skill or academic achievement, but simply because he met the aliens' bizarre criteria. Fresh out of high school, with dreams of becoming an engineer, he never imagined he'd be representing all of humanity before an alien empire. The docking process was surprisingly smooth. As the airlock sealed and pressurized, Marcus joined Captain Chun and the small diplomatic team in the corridor. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's xenobiologist, checked her instruments one final time. "Remember," Dr. Vasquez whispered to Marcus, "we know very little about their culture or biology. The Zephyrians communicate through a combination of vocal sounds and bioluminescent patterns. Our translators should handle the basics, but be prepared for misunderstandings." The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor that seemed to pulse with life. The walls were organic in appearance, covered in what looked like scales that shifted color in response to their presence. Soft, melodic tones echoed through the space, creating an alien symphony that was both beautiful and unsettling. Their escort appeared almost immediately, a tall, graceful figure that moved with fluid precision. The Zephyrian stood nearly 8 feet tall, its humanoid form covered in iridescent scales that shifted from deep purple to silver as it walked. Its face was elongated, with large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Most striking were the crystalline structures that grew from its head like a crown, pulsing with soft blue light. "Welcome, humans," the escort said, its voice melodious despite being filtered through their translation devices. "I am Keeper Theshan. Her Imperial Majesty awaits your arrival in the Harmony Chamber." As they followed Theshan through the winding corridors, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the alien architecture. Everything seemed to grow rather than being built, with organic curves and flowing lines that created a sense of movement even in stillness. Gardens of alien plants lined the walkways, their leaves shimmering with colors that had no names in human language. "The Queen's interest in your species is unprecedented," Theshan commented as they walked. Never before has she requested such specific parameters for a diplomatic meeting. Captain Chun frowned. "What can you tell us about Her Imperial Majesty? Our databases have very little information about Zephyrian leadership structure." Theshan's scales shifted to a thoughtful amber hue. "Queen Lyralii has ruled our empire for over 2 centuries. She is known for her wisdom, her beauty, and her particular tastes. The youngest of your kind was specifically requested because the Queen believes youth carries the purest essence of a species." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What does that mean exactly?" "You will understand when you meet her," Theshan replied cryptically. The Harmony Chamber was a vast, dome-shaped room with walls that seemed to stretch infinitely upward. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across the surfaces like living artwork, creating an atmosphere that was both peaceful and otherworldly. At the center of the chamber, on a raised platform surrounded by pools of glowing liquid, sat a throne that appeared to be carved from a single massive crystal. And on that throne sat the most beautiful being Marcus had ever seen. 3 months had passed since Marcus Reed made the decision that changed not only his life, but the destiny of 2 civilizations. The young man who had once worried about engineering entrance exams now stood in the Imperial Command Center, studying holographic displays that showed the movement of fleets across dozen star systems. The transformation had been remarkable. Zephyrian bioenhancement technology had unlocked potentials within Marcus that even Lyralii hadn't fully anticipated. His human adaptability, combined with alien knowledge and technology, had created something entirely new. His mind could now process information at superhuman speeds while retaining his essential creativity and emotional intelligence. His body had been strengthened and enhanced without losing its fundamental humanity. Most importantly, the essence fire that Lyralii had sensed in him had grown into something extraordinary. It manifested as an ability to understand and connect with different species on an instinctive level, to see patterns and possibilities that others missed, to inspire loyalty and cooperation across vast cultural divides. The hegemony fleets are maintaining their position at the Outer Rim, reported Admiral Corvex, a veteran Zephyrian military leader whose scale showed deep respect as he addressed Marcus. They appear to be testing our response to their expansion into neutral space. Marcus studied the tactical display, his enhanced mind calculating possibilities and outcomes with frightening speed. They're not interested in conquest here. This is a probe to see how committed we are to our new human allies. Lyralii, who stood beside him in the command center, nodded agreement. Her own transformation over the past 3 months had been equally remarkable. The lonely, isolated ruler had become something vibrant and alive again, her essence fire rekindled through their growing bond. The hegemony has been the dominant power in this region for centuries. They view Earth's inclusion in our empire as a threat to their influence. Then, we show them their right to be concerned, Marcus said quietly. He had learned much about galactic politics in a short time here. The universe was not a peaceful place, and Earth's newfound protection came at the cost of making powerful enemies. A new voice interrupted their discussion. My Lord Marcus, incoming priority transmission from Earth. Marcus smiled at the title, still finding it surreal that beings from across the galaxy now addressed him with such deference. Put it through, Theshan. The holographic display shifted to show Director Harrison of the United Earth Government. The man looked tired but determined, his face showing the strain of managing humanity's rapid integration into galactic civilization. Marcus, I hope you're well. I'm calling to confirm that the 3rd wave of technology transfers has been successfully integrated. Our scientists are calling it the greatest leap forward in human history. What's the status of the colony expansion program? Marcus asked. Ahead of schedule. With Zephyrian guidance, we've identified 12 suitable worlds within protected space. The first colony ships launch next month. Harrison paused. Marcus, I know I've said this before, but on behalf of all humanity, thank you. The sacrifices you've made. Nos sacrificos Marcus interrupted gently. Director, I need you to understand something. What I found here isn't a burden. It's a gift beyond anything I could have imagined. As if summoned by his words, Lyralii moved closer, her scaled hand finding his. The gesture was natural now, their bond having deepened over months of shared experiences and mutual growth. What had begun as a desperate gamble had become something profound and real. How is Sarah? Marcus asked, his voice softening. Harrison's stern expression broke into a genuine smile. Remarkable. The educational opportunities here on Earth have expanded dramatically thanks to Zephyrian knowledge sharing. She's excelling in advanced xenobiology and engineering. She asks about you constantly. Tell her I'll see her soon. The cultural exchange program launches next month. She'll be among the first human students to visit the capital worlds. After the transmission ended, Marcus and Lyralii walked together through the station's corridors, their presence causing respectful bows from the Zephyrians they passed. It had taken time for the Empire's citizens to accept a human in a position of authority, but Marcus's proven abilities and obvious importance to their beloved queen had won them over. "You're troubled," Lyralii observed as they entered their private quarters, a vast suite that combined the best of both human and Zephyrian design aesthetics. Marcus nodded, settling into a chair that had been custom-grown to accommodate human physiology. "The hegemony situation. I've been analyzing their movements, their resource allocations, their diplomatic communications. They're not going to back down. You believe war is inevitable. I believe they're going to force us to make a choice. Either we abandon our protection of Earth and other developing species, or we face open conflict with the most powerful military force in this region of space." Lyralii's scales shifted to thoughtful patterns as she considered his words. "What do you recommend?" The question no longer surprised Marcus. Over the months, he had become not just Lyralii's companion, but her chief advisor. His human perspective, enhanced by Zephyrian knowledge, and his unique essence fire abilities allowed him to see solutions that pure Zephyrian logic might miss. "We prepare for war while working to prevent it," Marcus said after a moment. "The hegemony respects strength above all else. If we show weakness, they'll push until we have no choice but to fight from a disadvantageous position. And if we show too much strength, they might decide we're too dangerous to allow to exist and launch a preemptive strike." Marcus stood and walked to the wall display, which showed a real-time map of known space. "There's a third option, though. Tell me." Marcus pointed to several star systems on the map. "The hegemony's power comes from their control of trade routes and their network of client species. But they made a lot of enemies over the centuries. Species that have been subjugated, exploited, or simply ignored." Lyralii's eyes brightened as she understood. "You want to build a coalition. Not just any coalition. A new model of interstellar cooperation based on mutual benefit rather than domination. The same principles that have made Earth's integration so successful. It would take years to build such an alliance." "We might not have years," Marcus admitted. "But we have something the hegemony doesn't. Proof that different species can work together as equals. Earth's transformation, the technology sharing, the cultural exchanges, it's all evidence that there's a better way." Lyralii moved to stand beside him, studying the star map with new interest. "Which species would you approach first?" Marcus highlighted several systems. "The Crystalline Collective has been fighting hegemony incursions for decades. The verdant worlds were strip-mined by hegemony corporations and abandoned. The nomad fleets have been denied access to traditional trade routes." He turned to face her. "All of them have reasons to oppose hegemony expansion, but none are strong enough to do it alone. And you believe your essence fire could unite them? I believe that showing them a working example of equal partnership might convince them that such a thing is possible. The Zephyrian-Human Alliance isn't just a military necessity, Lyralii. It's a proof of concept for something much larger." Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the complex work of galactic diplomacy. His enhanced abilities allowed him to process vast amounts of cultural and political data, while his essence fire helped him connect with species whose psychology was radically different from human or Zephyrian norms. The first breakthrough came with the Crystalline Collective, a hive-mind species whose geometric thinking patterns resonated with Marcus's engineering background. During a tense negotiation session, Marcus realized that their crystalline thought processes weren't so different from the pattern recognition skills that had made him an excellent student. "Your mathematical models of resource distribution are flawed," he told the collective's representative, a being that looked like a living geometric sculpture. "You're optimizing for efficiency, but efficiency without sustainability leads to collapse." The crystalline being paused, its faceted surface flickering with new patterns. Explain. Show them the Earth integration data, Marcus said to Lyralii, who activated a holographic display. 3 months ago, Earth was consuming resources at an unsustainable rate. Now, with Zephyrian biotechnology and sustainable practices, resource efficiency has increased by 340%, while quality of life has improved across all metrics. This is unexpected, the crystalline admitted. Our models did not account for such dramatic improvements through cooperation. Because your models are based on hegemony-style resource extraction, Marcus replied. What we're offering is something different. Instead of taking what you need from others, we help everyone produce more than they thought possible. The negotiation continued for hours, but Marcus could feel the shift in the collective's thinking. His essence fire seemed to help him understand their geometric logic patterns, finding ways to translate concepts between radically different forms of consciousness. Similar breakthroughs followed with other species. The verdant worlds, still scarred from hegemony strip mining, were initially hostile to any alliance proposal. But when Marcus shared Earth's environmental restoration data, showing how human-Zephyrian cooperation had reversed centuries of ecological damage in just months, their attitude changed dramatically. Your world was dying too? Asked Elder Thornvine, a plant-like being whose species had evolved from the forests of their home world. In some ways, Marcus admitted, not from strip mining, but from industrial pollution and resource depletion. Our population was growing faster than our ability to sustain it. How did you find balance? We learned that growth and sustainability aren't opposite goals. With the right technology and cooperation, you can have both. Marcus gestured to the environmental data. The key is thinking in longer time scales and understanding that every species brings different strengths to the partnership. The elder's bark-like skin rustled with what Marcus was learning to recognize as plant species approval. Your essence fire burns with ecological wisdom, young human. Perhaps there is hope for healing after all. As the coalition grew, so did hegemony aggression. Their fleets moved closer to Alliance space, and their diplomatic communications became increasingly hostile. Marcus found himself at the center of a growing crisis that could determine the fate of dozens of worlds. Intelligence reports confirm it. Admiral Corvex reported during an emergency strategy session. The hegemony is mobilizing their primary battle fleet. 300 ships, including their planet-killer dreadnoughts. Lyralii's scales darkened with worry. Our combined fleets total barely half that number. Numbers aren't everything, Marcus said quietly, studying the tactical displays. The hegemony's strength comes from their centralized command structure and overwhelming firepower. But they've never faced an alliance like ours. What do you mean? Asked General Mosshar of the Verdant Worlds, whose species had joined the alliance just weeks earlier. Marcus highlighted various points on the star map. Each of our member species has unique capabilities that the hegemony doesn't understand or expect. Crystalline computational power, verdant biological weapons, nomad fleet mobility, Zephyrian energy manipulation, human adaptability. Separately, we're vulnerable. Together, we're unpredictable. You have a plan, Lyralii said, recognizing the pattern of his thoughts. I have the beginning of one, but it requires something unprecedented, true tactical integration across species boundaries. Not just cooperation, but genuine unity of purpose and method. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation as Marcus worked to forge the Alliance's disparate fleets into a coherent fighting force. His essence fire proved crucial in bridging the communication gaps between species, helping different forms of consciousness understand and coordinate with each other. The crystalline collective's mathematical precision complemented the verdant world's organic adaptability. The nomad fleet's hit-and-run tactics merged seamlessly with Zephyrian energy manipulation. And throughout it all, human flexibility and creativity provided the connecting threads that held everything together. When the hegemony fleet finally arrived at the border of Alliance space, they found something they had never encountered before: a truly unified multi-species defense force that fought as one organism while maintaining the unique strengths of each component species. The battle was fierce but brief. The hegemony's overwhelming firepower meant nothing when their targets seemed to anticipate their every move. Crystalline computational power predicted their attack patterns, while verdant biological sensors tracked their movements through space. Nomad fleet raiders struck at vulnerable points, while Zephyrian energy weapons disabled key systems. And at the center of it all, Marcus coordinated the impossible dance of species working in perfect harmony. Hegemony command ship is requesting communication, reported Lieutenant Torres, who had stayed on as Earth's military liaison to the Alliance. Put them through, Marcus said, his enhanced abilities allowing him to remain calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. The holographic display showed Supreme Commander Vextar, a reptilian being whose species had ruled the hegemony for millennia. His expression was one of shocked disbelief. "Human," he said, the word carrying tones of both respect and hostility. "You have achieved something we thought impossible. But this victory means nothing. We have reserves, allies of our own. This war is far from over." "You're right," Marcus replied calmly. "This war is far from over because it never began. What you just experienced wasn't an act of aggression, Commander. It was a demonstration." Vextar's scaled features twisted with confusion. A demonstration of what? Of what cooperation looks like when it's real instead of forced. Your hegemony rules through fear and domination. We're building something based on mutual benefit and respect. Marcus gestured to the tactical display. Every species in our alliance chose to be here because they believe in something better than the galaxy you've created. Idealistic nonsense, Vextar snarled. Power is the only truth in the universe. Power without purpose is just destruction, Marcus replied. We're offering your species the chance to be part of something greater. Join us, and together we can build a galaxy where every species can thrive. The hegemony commander's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and, finally, something that might have been consideration. You would trust us after we attacked you? We would give you the chance to prove that trust is warranted. The choice is yours, Commander. The transmission ended without a response, but Marcus knew the seed had been planted. Change would take time, but for the first time in centuries, the hegemony faced an alternative to their philosophy of domination. In the months that followed, as more species joined the Alliance and the galaxy slowly began to transform, Marcus often thought about the moment that had started it all. Standing in an alien throne room, faced with an impossible choice, he had chosen to trust in the possibility of something better. Now, as he worked alongside Lyralii to build a new model of interstellar civilization, he understood what she had seen in him from the beginning. The Essence Fire wasn't just about potential. It was about the courage to grow beyond what you thought possible, to reach across the vast distances between different forms of life, and find the connections that made unity possible. Standing in their shared quarters, watching the stars through the great windows as ships from a dozen different species moved in harmony through space, Marcus felt Sarah's presence through their regular communication link. She was learning, growing, preparing for her own role in this new galaxy they were building together. "Any regrets?" Lyralii asked, moving to stand beside him. Marcus looked at the woman, the alien queen, who had become his partner in every sense of the word. Her scales pulsed with patterns of contentment and love that needed no translation. "Only one," he said with a smile. "I wish I could go back and tell that scared 18-year-old boy that sometimes the scariest decisions lead to the most extraordinary destinations." Lyralii's hand found his, and together they watched their impossible dream take shape among the stars. A galaxy where different species could work together as equals, where essence fire could kindle in any being willing to reach beyond their limitations, where the youngest human had helped teach an ancient civilization how to hope again. Queen Lyralii was clearly Zephyrian, but Her beauty transcended species boundaries. Her scales were a deep, rich blue that gradually shifted to silver at the edges, creating an effect like starlight on water. Her crystalline crown was more elaborate than Fession's, forming an intricate pattern that caught and refracted the chamber's ambient light. Her eyes, a brilliant gold that seemed to glow with inner fire, fixed on Marcus the moment he entered the chamber. "Approach," she commanded, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in Marcus's chest. The diplomatic team moved forward as a group, but Queen Lyralii raised a slender hand. "No, the young one. Alone." Captain Chun started to protest. "Your Majesty, diplomatic protocol requires. Your protocols are irrelevant here." The Queen interrupted, her scales darkening to a warning red. "I have requested the youngest of your kind for a specific purpose. Do not test my patience." Dr. Vasquez placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "It's okay," she whispered. "We'll be right here." Marcus squared his shoulders and walked forward alone, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. As he approached the throne, he could see more details of the Queen's alien beauty. Her movements were hypnotically graceful, each gesture flowing into the next like a choreographed dance. The patterns on her scales shifted constantly, creating a mesmerizing display that made it difficult to look away. When he reached the base of the platform, Marcus stopped and attempted what he hoped was a respectful bow. "Your Imperial Majesty, I am Marcus Reed, representing the United Earth Government." Queen Lyralii rose from her throne with liquid grace, her tall form towering over Marcus even from the platform. She descended the crystal steps slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. When she reached the bottom, she began to circle him like a predator studying its prey. "Fascinating," she murmured, her voice taking on undertones that their translators couldn't quite capture. "The youngest of your species, yet already showing the potential that drew my attention to your world." "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I don't understand what you mean," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. The Queen stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the complex patterns shifting across her features. "Your species is unique, young Marcus. In all my travels across the galaxy, I have never encountered beings quite like humans. You possess a quality that my people call essence fire, a burning potential that grows stronger with youth and fades with age." She reached out with one elegant hand, her fingers ending in what looked like crystalline claws. Marcus forced himself not to flinch as she traced the air just inches from his face, never quite touching, but close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her alien skin. "In you," she continued, "this essence burns brightest. It calls to something deep within my nature, something that has slumbered for decades." Her golden eyes seemed to glow brighter as she spoke. "Tell me, young Marcus, do you know why I specifically requested Earth's youngest representative?" Marcus swallowed hard. "No, Your Majesty. Our government assumed it was some kind of diplomatic tradition." Queen Lyralii laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Tradition? No, dear boy. This is something far more personal." She stepped back and raised her voice so that the entire chamber could hear. "I have made my decision. This one will remain with me." The diplomatic team erupted in shocked voices behind him, but Marcus could only stare at the alien queen in confusion. "Your Majesty, I don't understand. I'm here as part of a diplomatic mission." "You are here because I wished it," she interrupted, her scales taking on a possessive golden hue. "Your species has caught my interest, young Marcus, but you have captured something far more precious." Captain Shin stepped forward despite the obvious breach of protocol. "Your Majesty, we cannot simply leave one of our people here. Mr. Reed has family, responsibilities. He has a new responsibility now," Queen Lyralii declared, turning to address the humans with regal authority. "I have ruled the Zephyrian Empire for over 2 centuries. I have conquered worlds, built civilizations, and commanded the loyalty of 1 trillion subjects. But I have never felt the pull of the essence fire as strongly as I do with this young human." She returned her attention to Marcus, her expression softening slightly. You fear me, but you do not flee. You stand in the presence of absolute power, yet you maintain your dignity. These are qualities that resonate with my deepest nature. Marcus felt as though the chamber was spinning around him. Your Majesty, with all due respect, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just a kid from Earth. I don't have any special qualities or powers. I'm not even a real diplomat. I'm here because I happen to be the right age. Queen Lyralii moved closer again, her presence both terrifying and oddly comforting. You underestimate yourself, young Marcus. Age is not merely a number among your species. It represents potential unrealized, dreams uncompromised, spirit unbroken. These qualities create the essence fire that burns within you. She gestured to the chamber around them. I have lived for centuries, wielding power beyond your comprehension. But power without purpose becomes hollow, and I have felt that emptiness growing within me for decades. Then your species appears carrying this wonderful essence fire, and in you, she paused, her scales shifting to a warm amber hue. In you, I sensed the possibility of something I thought lost forever. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward carefully. Your Majesty, if I may ask, what exactly do you mean by essence fire? Is this some kind of energy we're not aware of? The Queen's attention shifted to the xenobiologist, though her posture remained focused on Marcus. Your science would not detect it because it is not purely physical. It is the manifestation of potential, the energy of growth, and change that drives all living things forward. Most species lose this quality early in their development, becoming stagnant and predictable. She turned back to Marcus. Humans are different. You maintain your essence fire longer than any species I have encountered, and yours burns with particular intensity. It calls to the deepest aspects of Zephyrian nature. Marcus struggled to process what he was hearing. I still don't understand why that means I have to stay here. Surely there are others. There are no others like you. Queen Lyralii interrupted firmly. I have observed your species through our long-range sensors for months. I have studied your cultures, your conflicts, your incredible capacity for growth and adaptation. But you, young Marcus, represent the purest expression of human potential I have yet encountered. She began to pace around him again, her movements hypnotic. You grew up on Earth's frontier colonies, facing challenges that would break most beings. You learned to adapt, to overcome, to find hope in the darkest situations. These experiences have shaped your essence fire into something truly extraordinary. Captain Chun spoke up again, her voice carefully controlled. Your Majesty, we appreciate your interest in Mr. Reed. But Earth's government will not simply abandon one of its citizens, regardless of the circumstances. Queen Lyralii's scales darkened ominously, and the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. You mistake my words for a request, Captain. I am not asking for your permission. I am informing you of my decision. The subtle thread in her voice was unmistakable, and Marcus realized with growing alarm that the fate of Earth's relationship with the Zephyrian Empire might depend on what happened next. He thought of his family back home, his friends, the life he'd barely begun to live. But he also thought of the billions of people on Earth who would suffer if these negotiations failed. What would happen to me here? He asked quietly. Queen Lyralii's expression softened again, her scales returning to their beautiful blue-silver pattern. You would be honored above all others in my empire. You would want for nothing, learn things beyond human imagination, and experience wonders that no other member of your species has ever seen. She moved closer, her voice taking on an almost pleading tone. I have ruled alone for so long, Marcus. The weight of an empire, the burden of decisions that affect trillions of lives. It is a solitude that grows heavier with each passing year. In your essence, fire, I sense the possibility of true companionship, someone who can share that burden and perhaps heal the emptiness within me. Marcus looked back at the diplomatic team, seeing the worry and helplessness in their faces. Then he looked up at Queen Lyralii, trying to see past her alien beauty to understand her true intentions. What he saw surprised him. Beneath the regal authority and overwhelming presence, there was something achingly lonely in her golden eyes. "If I agree to this," he said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that Earth will be safe? That my people won't suffer because of this decision?" The Queen's scales brightened with what looked like approval. "Even now, faced with your own uncertain fate, you think first of your people. This is exactly why you are so precious to me, young Marcus." She gestured broadly. "The Zephyrian Empire has no interest in conquering Earth. Your world offers nothing we need except one thing. You agree to remain with me, and I will ensure Earth's protection and prosperity for 1,000 generations. And if I refuse?" Queen Lyraliai's expression grew sad rather than angry. "Then you will return to your ship, and these negotiations will end. I will withdraw my empire from this sector of space, and your people will never see us again." "But Marcus," her voice carried a note of genuine pain. "I have waited so long to feel this call of essence fire. To lose it now would be devastating." Marcus realized he was facing an impossible choice. Stay with an alien queen who claimed to need him for reasons he barely understood, or potentially doom Earth to isolation in a galaxy full of unknown threats. He thought of his parents, probably watching the news feeds back home, waiting to hear about humanity's first diplomatic contact with aliens. He thought of his little sister, who had made him promise to bring back pictures of real aliens. Can I have some time to think about this?" he asked. Queen Lyraliai nodded gracefully. "Of course. Keeper Theshan will show you to quarters where you may rest and consider." "But Marcus," her eyes locked with his, and he felt the weight of centuries behind her gaze. "Understand that this is not merely about duty or sacrifice. I believe that in time, you will come to see this as I do. Not as imprisonment, but as the beginning of something extraordinary." As Theshan led the human delegation from the chamber, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his old life had ended the moment he met those golden eyes. Whatever decision he made, there would be no going back to the simple dreams of an 18-year-old boy from Earth. The Queen remained on her throne, watching until he disappeared from view, her scales pulsing with patterns of hope and desperate longing that spoke of desires too complex for human translation. The quarters Theshan led them to were unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined. The walls seemed to breathe with a gentle rhythm, their surface covered in what looked like living coral that pulsed with soft bioluminescent patterns. A large window dominated one wall, offering a breathtaking view of space beyond the station, where distant stars twinkled like diamonds against the cosmic void. "The Queen has provided you with the finest guest accommodations on the station," Theshan explained, gesturing to the elegant furniture that seemed to grow organically from the floor. "Your sustenance needs will be met, and you have access to our cultural database if you wish to learn more about our civilization." Captain Chin stood near the window, her hands clasped behind her back in a military posture that barely contained her frustration. "How long does Mr. Reed have to make his decision?" "There is no formal time limit," Theshan replied, their scales shifting to a diplomatic neutral tone. "However, Her Imperial Majesty is eager for resolution. She has postponed important imperial business to focus entirely on this matter." After Theshan departed, the diplomatic team gathered around Marcus, their faces grave. Dr. Vasquez was the first to speak, her voice carefully controlled. "Marcus, I want you to understand that no one expects you to sacrifice yourself for the mission. We'll find another way to establish relations with the Zephyrians." "Will we?" Marcus asked, sinking into what he hoped was a chair, though it felt more like sitting on a living creature. "Did you see her face when she talked about withdrawing from this sector? She's not bluffing, Dr. Vasquez. If I leave, we lose our only chance at an alliance with a civilization that could either protect Earth or crush it." Lieutenant Torres pulled out a small scanning device, running it over the walls with a worried expression. "The technology gap between us and them is staggering. Their ship construction techniques alone are centuries ahead of anything we have. And that's just what we can observe. Captain Chun turned from the window. Marcus, you're 18 years old. You haven't even started your real life yet. I can't in good conscience let you throw it away based on the demands of an alien we met 3 hours ago. But what if she's telling the truth? Marcus stood up, pacing to the window to look out at the vast alien structure surrounding them. What if humans really do have this essence fire thing she was talking about? What if there's something special about us that could actually benefit the galaxy? Dr. Vasquez frowned. The concept of essence fire doesn't match any biological or energy phenomena we understand. It could be entirely metaphorical or based on alien perceptions we can't comprehend. Or it could be real, Marcus countered. We've only known aliens existed for 3 months. Maybe there are aspects of consciousness or biology we haven't discovered yet. The room fell silent as they contemplated the implications. Marcus returned to his seat, his mind racing through everything he'd learned since arriving at the station. Queen Lyreliai's presence had been overwhelming, but beneath her alien beauty and imperial authority, he'd sensed something deeply familiar: loneliness. A soft chime filled the room, followed by a melodic voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Marcus Reed, Her Imperial Majesty requests your presence in the Garden of Contemplation. You may come alone or with your companions, as you prefer. Captain Chun immediately stood. We're coming with you. Actually, Marcus said quietly, I think I should go alone. If I'm going to make this decision, I need to understand what I'm really choosing between. Despite strong protests from the diplomatic team, Marcus followed the gentle guidance of the station's bioluminescent pathways to the Garden of Contemplation. The journey took him through sections of the station he hadn't seen before, past vast chambers filled with floating platforms where Zephyrians conducted their daily business. He watched them work with technologies that seemed to respond to thought rather than physical manipulation, their scales shifting in complex communication patterns that created a visual symphony of meaning. The Garden of Contemplation was a marvel that defied physics as Marcus understood it. A massive sphere of transparent material enclosed a miniature ecosystem that somehow maintained its own gravity. Trees with silver leaves reached toward an artificial sun that hung at the sphere's center, while streams of glowing water flowed upward in spirals, creating bridges between floating islands of vegetation. Queen Lyreliai waited on a platform suspended near the center of the sphere, accessible by a pathway of what appeared to be crystallized light. As Marcus approached, he could see that she had changed from her formal throne attire into something more casual, flowing garments that seemed to be made from the same bioluminescent material as the station walls. Thank you for coming, she said as he stepped onto the platform. Up close, away from the imposing atmosphere of the throne room, she seemed smaller somehow, more approachable. I wanted you to see this place because it represents something important about our culture. Marcus looked around at the impossible beauty surrounding them. It's incredible. How do you maintain an ecosystem like this in space? Through harmony, the Queen replied, settling gracefully onto a bench that grew from the platform as she approached it. Zephyrian technology is based on cooperation rather than domination. We work with natural forces rather than against them, guide rather than control. She gestured to the flowing streams of light-infused water. This garden has maintained itself for over a century with minimal intervention. It grows, adapts, evolves according to its own patterns while still serving its purpose. Marcus sat across from her, beginning to understand the metaphor. You're talking about more than just gardening, aren't you? Queen Lyreliai's scales shifted to a warm amber hue, and, for the first time, Marcus saw what might have been a smile on her alien features. You are remarkably perceptive for one so young. Yes, I am speaking of relationships, of the bond one hoped to forge between us. Your Majesty, Lyreliai, she interrupted gently. Here, in this place of contemplation, you may use my name. Lyreliai, then. Marcus struggled with the alien syllables. I need to understand what you really want from me. You talk about essence fire and companionship, but I'm not sure I can be whatever it is you're looking for. The Queen leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes intense, but no longer intimidating. Let me tell you a story, Marcus. 2 centuries ago, I was much like you, young for my species, eager to explore the galaxy and discover new wonders. The previous emperor chose me as his consort because of my own essence fire, my potential for growth and adaptation. Her scales darkened with memory. But as I grew into my role, as I learned to wield power and command loyalty, something within me began to fade. The responsibilities of leadership, the weight of countless decisions, the isolation that comes with absolute authority, they gradually dimmed my essence fire until I could barely remember what it felt like to dream of possibilities rather than manage realities. Marcus watched the patterns shift across her features, beginning to understand the complex emotions they represented. What happened to the Emperor? He died 60 years ago, Lyralii said simply. Since then, I have ruled alone, growing more effective but also more hollow. I began to believe that this was simply the natural progression of power, that leadership inevitably led to emotional emptiness. She stood and walked to the edge of the platform, looking out at the flowing streams of energy that connected the floating islands. Then, your species appeared in our long-range sensors. At first, we observed you from a distance, studying your cultures and development. What we found was extraordinary. Extraordinary how? You maintain your essence fire longer than any species we have encountered. Even your oldest leaders, your most experienced scholars, retain sparks of the curiosity and adaptability that drives growth. And your young? She turned back to him, her scales brightening. Your young burn with an intensity that takes my breath away. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. But why me specifically? There are millions of young humans. Because you represent the best of what humanity offers, Lyralii replied, returning to sit beside him. You grew up on the frontier colonies, facing challenges that would break most beings your age. You learned to solve problems with creativity rather than force, to find hope in impossible situations, to adapt without losing your essential nature. She reached out as if to touch his face, then stopped herself. When I studied your personal records, I saw a boy who lost his parents in a mining accident, but refused to let grief consume him, who took responsibility for his younger sister while still excelling in his studies, who chose engineering because he wanted to build things that would help people, not for personal gain. Marcus stared at her. You know about Sarah? Your sister? Yes. 10 years old, brilliant, energetic, and completely devoted to her older brother who raised her when tragedy struck your family. Lyralii's scales took on a gentle blue hue. She is part of what makes your essence fire burn so brightly, Marcus. Love, responsibility, hope for the future. These are the forces that feed the flame within you. Then, you understand why I can't just abandon her, Marcus said firmly. I understand why you think you cannot, Lyralii corrected. But consider this. If you remain with me, your sister will want for nothing. The Zephyrian Empire will ensure she receives the finest education in the galaxy, opportunities beyond anything Earth could provide. She could visit you here, perhaps even live here if she chooses when she comes of age. Marcus felt his resolve wavering. And my people? What happens to Earth? Prosperity beyond imagination, Lyralii said without hesitation. Trade agreements that will advance your technology by centuries, protection from the various hostile species that roam this galaxy, guidance in establishing your own interstellar civilization. All of this freely given in exchange for one precious gift. Me. You. She moved closer, her alien beauty suddenly, overwhelming in the intimate setting. But, Marcus, this would not be a prison sentence. I'm not asking you to sacrifice yourself for your species. I'm offering you a chance to become something more than you ever imagined possible. What do you mean? Lyralii stood and gestured to the garden around them. Ruling an empire is not a task for one being, no matter how capable. The loneliness, the isolation, they're not natural to my species any more than they are to yours. We are meant to bond with those who complement our strengths and shore up our weaknesses. Her scales began to pulse with complex patterns Marcus was starting to recognize as deep emotion. In your essence, Fire, I see the possibility of partnership. Someone who can share the burden of leadership without being crushed by it. Who can help me remember what it means to dream of a better future rather than simply manage the present. You want me to help you rule the empire? Marcus asked, stunned. I want you to help me become whole again, Lyralii replied. And in time, perhaps, I can help you realize the full potential that burns within you. Your essence, Fire, could be nurtured, developed, grown into something that would make you one of the most influential beings in the galaxy. Marcus stood abruptly, his mind reeling. This is insane. 3 days ago, I was worried about my engineering entrance exams. Now you're talking about ruling an interstellar empire? I'm not qualified for any of this. Qualification is learned, Lyralii said gently. Essence, Fire, is inherent. I have observed thousands of beings over my lifetime, Marcus. I have seen potential squandered and greatness achieved. In you, I see the raw materials of greatness waiting to be shaped. She approached him slowly, as one might approach a frightened animal. I know this is overwhelming. I know it seems impossible, but consider this. Your species stands at the threshold of either greatness or extinction. There are forces in this galaxy that would gladly see Earth reduced to ash. The Zephyrian Empire is powerful enough to protect you, but we need a reason to do so. And I'm that reason. You are the bridge between our peoples, Lyralii said. Through you, humans and Zephyrians could forge an alliance that would benefit both species for millennia to come. Your essence, Fire, could kindle something similar in my own people, helping them rediscover the dreams and aspirations that have grown dim over the centuries. Marcus walked to the platform's edge, looking down at the impossible streams of energy that defied gravity and logic. What would happen to who I am? Would I still be human? You would be more human than you ever imagined possible, Lyralii replied. Our technology, our knowledge, our perspective, they would not change your essential nature, but they would allow you to express it in ways you cannot currently conceive. She joined him at the platform's edge. Marcus, I am not asking you to stop being yourself. I am asking you to become the best version of yourself, to grow into potential that would otherwise remain forever unrealized. And us? Marcus asked, surprised by his own boldness. What would be the nature of our relationship? Lyralii's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors Marcus couldn't interpret. That would develop naturally, as all meaningful relationships do. I offer companionship, partnership, the chance to share experiences and perspectives across species boundaries. If deeper feelings develop over time. She paused. Well, stranger pairings have occurred in the galaxy. Marcus felt his heart racing as he considered the implications. Everything about this situation was beyond his experience or training, yet something deep within him responded to the Queen's words. Perhaps it was the essence Fire she spoke of, or perhaps it was simply the appeal of an adventure beyond imagination. If I agree, he said slowly, what guarantees do I have? How do I know this won't end with me trapped and miserable, regretting this decision for the rest of my life? Lyralii was quiet for a long moment, her scales cycling through what Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep contemplation. Finally, she spoke. I cannot guarantee that you will never experience sadness or longing for your old life. Change, even positive change, often involves loss. But I can promise you this. If you find that the life I offer brings you more pain than joy, I will personally ensure your safe return to Earth, along with all the benefits I have promised your species. You'd really do that? Even if it meant losing what you want most. Your happiness and fulfillment are essential to what I hope to achieve, Marcus. A bond forged through coercion or maintained through force is worthless. I want a true partnership, which means you must freely choose to remain. Marcus turned to face her fully, studying her alien features for any sign of deception. What he saw instead was vulnerability, hope, and a loneliness so deep it made his chest ache in sympathy. I need to speak with my team one more time, he said finally. And I want to send a message to my sister. Of course, Lyralii agreed immediately. Take all the time you need. But Marcus, her golden eyes met his. Whatever you decide, know that meeting you has already changed me. Your essence fire has rekindled something in me that I thought was lost forever. For that gift alone, I am in your debt. As Marcus made his way back to the guest quarters, his mind churned with possibilities and fears in equal measure. Behind him, Queen Lyralii remained on the platform, watching the streams of energy flow through her impossible garden and daring, for the first time in decades, to hope for a future filled with more than duty and solitude. The communication chamber that Theshan provided was unlike any technology Marcus had ever seen. Instead of screens or keyboards, the walls themselves seemed to respond to thought and intention, creating holographic displays that shifted and adapted based on his needs. After some experimentation, he managed to establish a quantum communication link with Earth. Sarah's face appeared in the hologram, her 10-year-old features bright with excitement despite the obvious late hour wherever she was. Behind her, Marcus could see their cramped apartment in New Geneva Colony, looking smaller and shabbier than he remembered. "Marcus," she squealed, her voice carrying clearly across the impossible distance. "Are you really on an alien spaceship? The news says you're negotiating with some kind of space queen." Despite everything weighing on his mind, Marcus couldn't help but smile at his sister's enthusiasm. "Something like that, kiddo. How are you doing? Is Mrs. Patterson taking good care of you?" "She makes terrible pancakes," Sarah replied with the brutal honesty of childhood. "But she lets me stay up late to watch the news feeds about your mission." "Marcus, the aliens are so cool. Have you seen any of their technology? Do they really have scales? Can they breathe underwater?" "Slow down," Marcus laughed. "Yes, they have scales, and their technology is incredible. I'm seeing things I never imagined possible." His expression grew more serious. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something important." The girl's face scrunched with concern. "You sound worried. Is everything okay?" Marcus took a deep breath. How could he possibly explain this situation to a 10-year-old? "The alien queen, her name is Lyralii, has made me an offer. She wants me to stay here and help her with important work." "Like a job? That's awesome. You get to live on an alien spaceship." "It's more complicated than that, Sarah. If I stay, it might be for a very long time. Years, maybe forever." Sarah's excitement dimmed slightly. "Forever? But what about me? What about coming home? If I stay, you'll be taken care of. Better than I could ever manage on my own. You could have the best education in the galaxy, see things no other human has ever seen. And you could visit me here, maybe even live here someday if you wanted." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her young mind processing the implications. "You don't want to leave me, do you?" "Never," Marcus said firmly. "You're the most important thing in my life, Sarah. Everything I do for you." "Then, why are you thinking about staying?" Marcus struggled to find words a child could understand. "Because this decision isn't just about us. It's about all of humanity. The aliens, they're incredibly powerful, Sarah. They could help Earth in ways we can't imagine, or they could simply ignore us and let us face the galaxy alone. The choice depends on what I do next." Sarah's face took on the serious expression she wore when wrestling with difficult math problems. "So you have to choose between staying with me and helping everyone on Earth. It's not that simple. If I stay, you'd benefit too. And I'd be able to help Earth at the same time. But," he paused, looking for the right words, "I'd be living a very different life than anything we ever planned." "Different how?" Marcus thought about Queen Lyralii's words, about ruling an empire and developing his essence fire into something beyond human experience. "I'd be learning things about the galaxy that no human has ever known. I'd be working with Queen Lyralii to build better relationships between humans and aliens. I might even help other species too." Sarah was quiet for several minutes, her young face cycling through expressions as she thought. Finally, she spoke. "Marcus, do you remember when you first taught me to ride my bike?" The question caught him off guard. Of course, you were 7, and you were terrified of falling. And you told me that sometimes being brave means doing scary things because they're the right thing to do, even when you don't know how they'll turn out. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I remember. This sounds like one of those times, Sarah said with startling wisdom. You're scared, but you know staying is the right thing to do, aren't you? How can you tell? Because you always get that look on your face when you're trying to protect me from something. And because she paused, suddenly, looking much older than her years. Because if you really wanted to come home, you wouldn't be asking me for permission to stay. Marcus stared at his little sister, amazed by her insight. You're pretty smart for a kid, you know that? I learned from the best, Sarah replied with a wobbly smile. Marcus, if this alien queen really can help Earth, and if she really can give us better lives, then maybe you should stay. Just promise me you'll be careful, okay? And promise you'll call me every day. I promise, kiddo. And, Sarah, I love you more than all the stars in the galaxy. I love you too, Marcus. Now go save the universe, or whatever. After the call ended, Marcus sat in the communication chamber for a long time, watching the holographic displays fade back into the living walls. His sister's words echoed in his mind, along with everything Queen Lyralii had told him about essence fire, potential, and the chance to become something greater than he'd ever imagined. When he finally returned to the guest quarters, he found the diplomatic team in heated discussion. Captain Chin looked up as he entered, her expression grave. Marcus, we've been analyzing everything we know about Zephyrian culture and technology, she said. I have to be honest. If you choose to stay, you'll be taking an enormous risk. We have no idea what their true intentions are, or what this essence fire concept really means. Dr. Vasquez nodded agreement. The biological and psychological implications are completely unknown. For all we know, this could be some form of elaborate experimentation. Or, Lieutenant Torres added quietly, it could be exactly what she claims it is. The technological capabilities we've observed suggest they're operating on principles we don't understand. Maybe there are aspects of consciousness or biology that our science hasn't discovered yet. Marcus sat down heavily, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. I spoke with Sarah. She thinks I should stay. A 10-year-old can't possibly understand the implications, Captain Chin began. She understands better than any of us, Marcus interrupted. She knows what it means to sacrifice for something bigger than yourself. We've been doing it our whole lives. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the vast alien structure surrounding them. Captain, what's Earth's real situation? Not the official reports. What does our intelligence actually say about our chances alone in the galaxy? Captain Chun exchanged glances with the other team members. Classified, but not good. We've detected at least 3 potentially hostile civilizations within 50 light years of Earth. Our technology couldn't defend against any of them. And, with Zephyrian protection, we'd essentially be untouchable, Lieutenant Torres admitted. Their energy manipulation capabilities alone put them centuries ahead of anything we've encountered. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. Marcus, even if staying here would benefit humanity, that doesn't mean you should sacrifice your life for it. You're 18 years old. You deserve to live your own life, make your own choices. What if this is my choice? Marcus asked. What if everything that's happened, growing up on the frontier, learning to adapt and survive, taking care of Sarah, what if it all led to this moment? What if I'm supposed to be here? He turned back to face them. Queen Lyralii talked about potential, about becoming something greater than I imagined possible. What if she's right? What if staying here isn't a sacrifice, but an opportunity? Captain Chun shook her head. You're talking about spending your life with an alien being you've known for less than a day, based on concepts we don't understand and promises we can't verify. You're right, Marcus agreed. It's insane, but so is first contact with aliens, and so is the idea that humanity might have some special quality that could benefit an interstellar empire. He paused. Sometimes insane is just another word for unprecedented. Before anyone could respond, Theshan appeared in the doorway, their scales cycling through respectful patterns. Forgive the interruption, but Her Imperial Majesty requests Marcus Reed's presence in the Harmony Chamber. She says the time for contemplation has ended. The walk back to the throne room felt different this time. Marcus was more aware of the alien architecture, the way the walls seemed to pulse with life and purpose. He noticed other Zephyrians going about their business, their scales creating complex communication patterns he was beginning to understand on an instinctive level. There was order here, but also something that felt like contentment. Queen Lyralii waited on her crystal throne, but her posture was different, less regal, more vulnerable. As Marcus approached, he could see that her scales were cycling through patterns of nervous anticipation. "Have you reached a decision?" she asked, her melodious voice carefully neutral. Marcus stopped at the base of the platform, looking up at the alien queen who had offered to change his life in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. "I have questions first." "Ask them." "This essence fire you talk about. If I stay, will I still be human? Will I still be me?" Lyralii descended from her throne, moving with that fluid grace that seemed to defy gravity. "You will be more yourself than you have ever been. Our technology can enhance and develop your natural abilities, but it cannot change your fundamental nature. You would remain human in all the ways that matter. And my sister, you promise she'll be safe and cared for. She will be treated as royalty, because that is what she will be, sister to my chosen companion. She will want for nothing, and when she comes of age, she can choose her own path freely." Marcus nodded. "What about my people? Earth? What guarantees do they have?" "A formal alliance treaty, protected status within the Empire, and technology transfers that will advance your civilization by centuries. Your species will never again face the galaxy alone. And if I change my mind, if I decide this isn't working?" Lyralii's scales shifted to what Marcus now recognized as deep sincerity. "Then you return to Earth with my blessing and all promises to your people honored. I want a willing companion, Marcus, not a prisoner." Marcus took a deep breath. Everything about this situation defied logic and caution. He was being asked to trust an alien being he'd known for hours, to abandon the only life he'd ever known, to step into a role he didn't understand for purposes that might be beyond human comprehension. But beneath the fear and uncertainty, something else burned bright. The same spark that had driven him to excel in his studies despite impossible odds. The same fire that had pushed him to care for Sarah when anyone else would have given up. The same essence that had brought him to this moment. "I'll stay," he said quietly. Queen Lyralii's scales blazed with brilliant light, cycling through patterns of joy and relief so intense they were almost painful to watch. "You will?" "Truly, I'll stay," Marcus repeated more firmly. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "I want regular communication with my sister and Earth. I want to be involved in the negotiations for the Alliance Treaty. And I want to understand everything. Your culture, your technology, this essence fire concept. If I'm going to help you rule an empire, I need to know what I'm doing." "Agreed to all," Lyralii said immediately. "Marcus, you cannot know what this means to me. For so long, I had resigned myself to eternal solitude. Now," her voice caught with emotion, "now I dare to hope for something I thought impossible." She gestured to the diplomatic team, who had followed at a respectful distance. "Captain Shun, you may inform Earth that formal alliance negotiations will begin immediately. Dr. Vasquez, I will be honored to have you study our biological enhancement technologies. Lieutenant Torres, our engineers are eager to share their knowledge with someone who can appreciate their work." As the implications of his decision sank in, Marcus felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He was leaving behind everything familiar, stepping into the unknown with only faith and determination to guide him. But as he looked up at Queen Lyralii, he reminded himself he saw something in her alien features that transcended species boundaries. Hope, joy, the beginning of something that might, in time, become love. "What happens now?" he asked. Now, Lyrelii said, extending her hand to him, we begin the greatest adventure either of our species has ever known. Marcus reached out and took her hand, feeling the warm, alien texture of her scaled skin. As their fingers intertwined, her scales pulsed with patterns of welcome and promise, and he felt something deep within himself respond, a warmth that spread through his chest, a sense of potential awakening. Perhaps this was what she meant by essence fire. Perhaps this was what he'd been meant to become all along. Behind them, the diplomatic team watched in amazement as the youngest human in history began his transformation into something unprecedented, a bridge between species, a partner to an alien queen, and possibly the key to humanity's greatest destiny among the stars.